world feels a bit toxic and blah these days, doesn't it? The same old people coming up with the same old solutions for big problems that still don't work. We need to change the game. Well, welcome to Women Advancing. Join me, host Kate Byrne, in this dynamic bi-weekly podcast, bringing together female founders, funders, and thought leaders. Listen to the people driving change, how they got there, how you can help, and yep, how you might just be the next one to advance. Proof that all ships rise with women at the helm. That's what happens when Women Advance with Kate Byrne.
Hey everyone, it's your host Kate Byrne with Women Advancing. I wanted to take a little bit of a look at doubt. There's so much of it these days, and its relationship with humility, curiosity, and so much more. And really, what happens, and I'm sure many of us have had this happen, when people doubt your ability and they say from the get-go, you're never going to amount to much of anything. Well, that's how some people climb ladders and others build them. And my guest today, Michelle Gervais, is one of those ladder builders. Having been told from an early age, quite vulnerably, that she was not going to amount to much because of, frankly, what her father did, which is stupid. She's been busy proving everybody wrong. And she is now today a partner at Battleground LLP. She's an adjunct professor. She's active in sports and entertainment and a leader of Tampa Bay events. And she's had to not only navigate the high stakes world of matrimonial and commercial litigation, she's done all of those other activities, plus being a mom and a wife, with steel and grace. And as a result, has often surprised those who didn't see her coming. In our conversation, we talk about what it really takes to rise higher than others expect and what happens when you do on your own terms. Wow, what a gift that is. Michelle and I dig in how to stay grounded under pressure, how to lead with conviction in those rooms where they technically, supposedly, weren't built for you, and why real strength has absolutely nothing to do with being the loudest voice in the room. If you've ever been doubted, dismissed, or told you couldn't ever do that or be that, this one's for you. Because as Michelle reminds us, the best way to silence doubt, it's not revenge, it's result. Our conversation is for all who've ever been told you can't, and you decided to rewrite the ending. Stay to the end. There's KB takeaways, and look forward to continuing the conversation. Welcome, Women Advancing listeners. Today, we have such an accomplished person who's going to share a lot of insights through lived experience and success and triumph of others, frankly, underestimating her. And man, were they wrong. So join me in welcoming Michelle Gervais, who is the partner in Blank Rome's matrimonial and commercial litigation practice groups. She's also co-chair of the Sports Industry Group and president of sports in Tampa Bay and an adjunct professor. Welcome, very much overachiever, you lady.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. When we first spoke, one thing that I really took away was this whole notion of how early days, and it's happened to so many of us, but you really had it, where there was such a low bar of expectation with you. And I'm going to take us back to that time and kind of, if you're comfortable sharing, when was the first time that someone actually underestimated you to that degree? And then how did you use that moment as a little fuel to fire rather than saying, you're right, I'm wrong, I'm worthless, why bother?
So I recall it being third grade, and I think I shared this with you and haven't shared the story with many, but happy to share it because I think it's important. I grew up in a very small town in the middle of nowhere, Michigan, in the Upper Peninsula, which is basically like South Canada. Most of the folks there are French Canadian, or Finnish, or there's some Italian, but that's basically the heritage. Very small school, graduated like 54 kids in my class, my senior class. And I remember being in third grade, and at the time, the guidance counselor was also the principal of the elementary school, and then turned into being the guidance counselor at the high school for my high school later on, and my varsity basketball coach. And I remember in third grade him taking me aside and telling me that given what your dad does for a living, you're never going to amount to anything anyway. And I remember thinking to myself, who the F is this guy? Why is he saying that? Horrible. I remember thinking to myself, my dad's amazing. What are you talking about? He's worked in a grocery store his entire life because he's loyal and he's like the manager of the produce section. And he teaches me all the time about how to pick fruit when when I'm at the
And
store.
everybody goes to him for
Everybody,
advice.
everybody, because it was like the only thing in town. And I was like thinking to myself, I'm like, this is crazy. Apparently, you don't know where I really come from. And I just remember being, third grade and straight A student and always was a straight A student and just kept that in the back of my head. And, I just knew from early on, and I think this was one of the reasons why I was going to be a lawyer. I think that I always thought I am going to champion other people in the best way that I can, and I'm going to be an advocate for other people and make sure they always know that they are something and they can be anything they want to be. And it's interesting because he became my basketball coach, later on when I was in high school. And
Yeah.
my little sister, who's 2 years younger, so this would have been a junior. No, I guess it was my senior year. And she was a sophomore and she got brought up to varsity because she was very good. And I mean, she was way better than me, but I always tease her that I was still better, but she was way better than me. And, he was yelling at her during practice. And I remember saying to myself, and it wasn't her fault. And I remember going to him and I said, Coach, that was completely inappropriate. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to sit here and stand for that. Like what you just said is wrong. And he's like, well, if you don't like it, quit. And I go, oh, it's perfect. I do. And I walked off and I quit. And he came running after me because then, of course, the rest of the team wanted to quit too and, begged me to come back. But I remember thinking to myself, yep. And then, got the scores that I did on my ACT. And he was, of course, then my guidance counselor because that's how that rolled and was like, yeah, you can go anywhere. Just let me know. And I was like,
Oh
I know.
man.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Glad you finally caught up,
Yeah.
Slowpoke.
Yeah.
Jeez. Well, so I want to touch upon for a sec the law bit. So yes, you intervened for your sister. Like, hello, I'm not going to tolerate bullies, regardless.
Right.
Speak the truth, etc. Right? So, how did you choose the specific areas of expertise? Right? You've got your commercial, you've also got matrimonial in law. I mean, those are like what drew you to those battlegrounds? I guess maybe the potential for bullying, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've never really given it a lot of thought, but I kind of fell into the roles. So
Huh.
you go to law school and you do all areas that you have to in your courses and you work at different places during the summer to kind of get a feel, but you never really quite understand all of the areas of law and like where
Right.
do I want to work, right? What do I want to do? And then you get into a firm and I was really fortunate. It kind of happened to me. I was in a competition in law school during my third year, my last year. And my teammate and I had done very well, and we were being honored at a Florida bar luncheon. It just happened to be the 50-year anniversary of people who had their 50-year anniversary in the law practice. At the same time, that was the actual luncheon that they were doing our awards at.
Oh,
And all of the spaces were full. Of course, we didn't know anybody. And we're sitting there with our coach, and there was a chair next to me that was open. Luncheon starts, and in walks this older man. He's looking for a spot to sit. He's kind of walking around. I told him to sit next to me. I had no idea who he was. Turns out he was one of the preeminent Florida family lawyers, if not in the state, maybe the country. His
wow.
as a judge, all the things, right? And he started talking to me again. Had no idea who he was. And he asked about like, what was your topic on your paper, on your moot court brief? And it happened to be a family law issue. And again, he was the family law specialist, didn't know that.
Nick.
And we just hit it off and he offered me a job. And so I remember when he got up and left, my coach looks at me and he goes, do you have any idea who that was? I'm like, I have no clue. And I go, but he just offered me a job. Should I take it? And he's like, yeah, you think?
Oh, Michelle, I love stories like that. You know what I mean? Where it's just that sort of, for lack of a better term, just divine intervention, kind of
100%.
a
Serendipity.
shout, whatever, pick your phrase of
Yep.
choice that speaks to that kind of magic moment where the stars literally align and just you being you, boo, makes it all happen. So afraid of the law. And I'll tell you, I'm being completely vulnerable now, people and listeners. I just had to go to traffic court. And here in Virginia, holy smokes. I mean, I wasn't in this mode, but I literally watched this morning 5 people be put into jail 1 to 2 nights
For what
for
reason?
they were going 100 miles an hour,
Oh, yeah, that, what, a
which
25
is
hour
excessive.
zone.
And yeah, but still, I don't know what. Anyway, it can be a really unforgiving place for anyone who doesn't fit in the mold and, have clear love for authority. And I think there are more and more folks who are getting more comfortable speaking their truth. So there's a lot of people who question. Younger generations definitely have a different relationship to power and those who are in power. And there's certain milestones that need to be achieved, I would say. So, how did you learn, though, early days? How did you learn to assert authority in the rooms that were not initially or supposedly designed for you? Clearly, you've proven that wrong, but
Great question too. I'm not sure. I think the best that I can say is that I had my grandparents on my father's side, very supportive and protective, and my grandpa, who probably in his generation did not grow up in a situation where he thought a lot of women should be in power. He empowered me from a very early age. He brought me to meetings with his lawyers to do his estate planning and brought me in on it and wanted my thoughts. And I
well,
worked
that's beautiful.
and he always was like, he's like, yeah, women, 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 but you can do anything, which I always thought was interesting and a very cool way of looking at it from his generation, because that was tough back then. But
Oh,
I
yeah.
held two jobs, going through high school. I started work at 13. I lied to my boss and in the state of Michigan to be 14, and I lied and said I was 14, and they all knew I wasn't 14, but they knew I wanted to be independent and make my own money. So I started waitressing at 13 and worked there forever and worked hard and did well in school and I think just being around all the adults that I was around and playing cards with my family, my grandparents and all of their brothers and sisters, they had 11 siblings on both sides. We would
Uh,
have these big card games for the holidays and
yeah.
they would let us give like little massages at the table and buy into the game when we were kids. And I learned how to play blackjack from my age 9, right? All the things I probably shouldn't be saying, but um,
No, that's all real. I think I wish more people would share things like that because it's nothing to be, I think it's a great thing. I think it's
yeah,
an important.
they always made me feel safe in a way to maybe not be disrespectful, but to assert myself in a way with giving an opinion, but it had to be in probably a softer way that I do now.
I probably said from the person who right here had her mouth washed out with soap. My parents were that generation.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
or hot
And
sauce.
a
Yeah.
little bit of a wise. Want to hear what I think? Here we go. So do you think doubt, whether it's others or your own, can actually then be useful?
Yeah, you hear a lot of the people that talk about failures and you learn more from failures. I think you also learn more from doubt and how do we overcome it. And I mean, we always have doubt. I mean, I still have doubt and at least I work very hard to not feel that way or to, you call it what imposter syndrome
Yeah.
to say in these rooms now, no, I belong. And no offense to the male gender, because I think a lot of great men got me to where I'm at. So I will never sit back and say negative things about that. But at the end of the day, like what man has ever said he didn't belong? Or he didn't, or he had doubt, or he didn't think he should apply for a job that he only had maybe 10% of the qualifications.
Yep.
They don't. It's interesting. I had my daughter, she's 16 and a half, and I know you have kids. She
Yeah.
was in fourth grade, and her teacher at the time was a little bit of a first like tough teacher we had, in the years. But she was fantastic because she was teaching Sophie a lot. And I'll never forget they had to apply for jobs within like they go and do like this junior like business, um,
Oh,
where they go and like have their own little city, right? And they govern.
right. Yep.
And she's like told all of them, here are all the positions you can apply for. And so Sophie came home, fourth grade. She's like, Mom, I need you to help me put a resume together. I need you to help me. I said, okay, what are you applying for? She's like, I'm applying to be a camp counselor and I'm applying for marketing. And I'm like, okay. So we did her resume and working on it. And the next day I asked her, how did it go? And she goes, well, Miss Thompson took me up to the front and said, Sophie, how come you didn't apply to be the mayor? And she said, or the CEO, sorry, the CEO of the bank. And she goes, well, Miss Thompson, I've never held a job before. How could I ever be, the CEO? And she said, every boy in this class has never held a job before. And guess what they applied for? The
Oh,
CEO,
wow.
right? And I was like, wow. When she came home and told me that, I thought to myself, okay, what an amazing lesson for me. Because I didn't challenge her on those positions because I thought, let her apply for whatever she wants to apply for. But I never gave it a second thought.
Oh my God. I can't even. That's amazing. When you're underestimated, if you are today,
all the time.
Do you still feel that urge to prove people wrong? Or how has there been a shift in your relationship with that?
I think it's no longer an urge, but more of a satisfaction.
Yeah.
Like I'll never forget, I was going to Jacksonville for multiple hearings back in the day of the foreclosures in the state of Florida. And I was north of Miami, so the firm just kept sending me. And I was in front of the same judge over and over and over again, at least I would say 5 weeks in a row. And it was these big cattle calls, right, where everyone shows
Yeah.
up. And most of the, folks that were going through the foreclosures, it was sad. They were very downtrodden, that they hadn't showered in forever. I mean, you could tell in the courtroom, who those folks were. Here I am in a suit, again, practicing how many times in front of the same judge. But when I sat down, all the male lawyers sat on the other side because I was only a female lawyer in the place. But then
Right.
all the people who were about to lose their homes were sitting next to me or sitting in my area. That's fine, no big deal. The judge, who I would say was in his 70s, late 70s, literally came over to me before he started and got on the bench and said, "Ma'am, are you about to lose your home?" And I sat there and I was like, "Judge, I'm in a suit. I've been in front of you for how many weeks in a row?" "No, I'm not." But thank you for asking. Yeah.
Um,
Right.
I,
Or you get confused with the court reporter. "You must be the court reporter." "Oh, no, I'm not." So
oh my gosh,
I've
that's
only been
just,
practicing for 26 years. It gets a little bit less the older I get, but yeah, it's a lot. But I kind of secretly enjoyed it.
well, oh, I'm sure, because it's like, watch that. And then when you went on to win those people's homes back, thank you very much. Probably he will never, hopefully, one would hope that he would learn from that and never make that same mistake twice. A girl can dream. A girl can dream.
Right, right.
Well, so, going forth and dealing with both the challenges that your clients have, as well as the way the court challenges you and others, and just life in general, all of that demands a certain stamina. So, how do you stay grounded and strategic under pressure when the stakes of some of these or the emotions are so high?
Look, that's a lot of the times. A lot of times we have these what we call bet the company types of cases, and
Yeah, yeah, I bet.
and for the most part, right, it's money, but it's still somebody's everything, right? Or it's a family law case and it's their kids, or it's a custody fight. I mean, we for me, I've never thought of myself as, "Oh my gosh, I'm a lawyer." I've always thought the law is something that I do. I tell my daughter all the time and my husband, I'm like, if I die someday, the top 10 things cannot include she was a great lawyer. I mean, I hope that's the 11th thing, but it's what I do, but it's not who I am. And
Yeah,
so I've never taken on that persona. I like to think that I've kept very humble where I'm at, and I have a lot of empathy for folks, and I try to see myself in their shoes and what they're going through. And I think that's how I've been able to maybe be as successful as I have been, or at least have the clients that I've been able to work with.
right.
Look, and there's times, right? It's exhausting. There's times that want to just crawl up in a little ball and not going to work, and that happens too. And sometimes you have to take time for yourself.
Right. And when those moments happen, do you have, like, for instance, a routine or a ritual or a steady practice that you do? Do you just say, "Oh my gosh, I've got to take 5 minutes and just go outside and feel air"?
Yeah. So last year we were in the middle of doing what I do, right? And I also have a sick husband, and talk about talking to doctors, right? And learning to ask a second question, but not necessarily a question, if that makes sense. And
Yes, it
right,
does.
and trying to advocate for him. We lost our house in Milton, where it was 85% gutted from mold in the studs, right? So we were living in hotels, and we were with a
Oh,
dog and a daughter, right? And when we're living, and we had to find an apartment. And I remember saying to myself, "Okay, this might be a little much. I may have
yeah.
to take
No
my..."
more thanks.
So I went for a massage, got some fresh air, and it helped. A walk sometimes, just any type of change in the moment helps me, where I can just kind of walk away. I mean, there are times we have to like sit in silence. There are times I meditate. I wouldn't say I'm great at meditating. I'm learning to be better, right? Aren't we all?
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but sometimes the breath, right? The breath work is important. And reminding myself, so much to be thankful for. And as much as it's hard to go through those moments, and it's okay to feel that hardship and that hard time, there's going to be a better day. And there's always someone who's got it worse.
Right.
And I'm thankful that I'm in a hotel as opposed to on the street, or I'm thankful right? That I'm able to do something about it. So many people couldn't.
True, true. This too shall pass. It's kind of a redirection. And I think, there's that famous saying from Mother Teresa, I know that God only gives us that which we can, handle. I just wish he didn't have so much confidence in me,
Right.
which,
Or you must have really thought I was a badass, right?
yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. It's like,
Mother Teresa would never say badass, but that's
no,
the way.
right. Yeah, no, true, true. And I also think trying, especially and it's so much easier than said. And believe me, listeners, I know this is going to sound so Pollyanna, but I have found it, to your point, helps me kind of interrupt the cycle if I stop and go, okay, how can I look at this differently? What am I actually learning from all of this? Right. And I think, and that has helped to give it enough of a pause and enough of a, I don't know, looking at it from a different vantage point. And if I sit there and stare at it and go, absolutely nothing, this is just stupid, well, then maybe that's what I needed. And then, so what am I going to do? Not get myself in that same kind of position again,
Or
right?
don't want somebody else's, right? You
Yes.
can
Is
do
this
it,
mine?
right? And sometimes it's hard. I don't know about you, but I'm gonna bet that people call you, you're the person everyone calls when something's wrong, right? And
Mm,
that person too, whether it's work related from their position, right? Or it's in my life, my personal life. Sometimes you just can't answer the phone.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Learning that little word called no is amazing.
Or maybe not right now.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good one. So, as a mentor and a partner, I mean, how do you help others who are still finding their confidence or their voice in such, male-dominated industries? So, sort of paying it forward, passing
Yeah.
batons, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I'm president of Women in Sports and Events Tampa Bay, otherwise known as WISE Tampa Bay, and we do a lot of mentoring in there with the younger generation in our fields, as well as the adjunct professor. I teach sports entertainment law in the graduate program at USF, and I'm constantly mentoring and talking, but making them be reminded of how amazing that they are right now, right?
Yeah,
I think for me, when I look back, the things that were going great in my life, why were they going great at an early age? Okay, because people believed in me. Why were things going bad? Because people were underestimating or people weren't believing in me. And then how
right.
did I change their thoughts, or how did I prove myself is not the right phraseology I want to use, because sometimes you can't help what people think, right? But maybe helping to change their minds or change their thoughts. I remember having a boss in early years of being a lawyer, female, and she was very, 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 very difficult on me. It was bad, and that's okay. It would never happen in this day and age, right? Because
Yeah,
you can get away with it. But at the end of the day, when years later, when I was going out for partner, she was one that put me up, and she came to me and said, like, no matter what I threw at you, you were always the nicest human being at the end of the day, and always like kind of kept your grace. And I said, because it wasn't true. I said, you hurt me, you killed me, and I may have had a crying session at home, right? But like at the end of the day, I had to keep being me. I don't need to change for anybody else. And so I keep trying to tell my daughter, you know what? You're going to have a lot of people around you that may not always treat you greatly, but you don't have to drop to their level and do that back.
what advice would you give to someone who's quietly underestimated at work right now,
Oh,
or who wants to rise but isn't sure how to start or how to go about it, which, as you know, is can be so tricky
can be.
because God forbid we come across as ambitious.
Yeah. Oh, right. I mean,
Keep an eye out on her, guard yourself, right?
right. Well, first of all, right, there's room for all of us at the table. The
Yeah.
table is not small. It doesn't need to be small. I don't want my table small. If my table is small, that means I'm small-minded. I need the big bad table of everybody, because people have so many different opinions and differences in thought and cultural backgrounds. There's so much that we take in from everybody else. So I don't want that small table, and I try to remind them of that and to surround themselves, if they can, with someone who I have learned to call a sponsor as opposed to a mentor, because
Mhm.
who's the person that's going to back you up when you're not in the room? That's the person you want. That's who you want to align yourself with. And there might not be anybody, right? So then it's okay. Is this the place that I really want to work at? Is this a place that I need to be at? And if it's not, where do I need to go and what type of place do I need to look for?
And then have the discipline and the oomph to do it.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's certainly
Yeah.
not easy
No, no, no.
when we're young
So
and we're naive, right?
Well, yeah, yeah, I know. Well, and I think, that's one of the things I was just thinking about when we were talking a little earlier about doubt, is kind of the connection or the relationship of doubt with humility
Mhm.
and with curiosity. Because first I thought, oh, it's interesting. Is there a relationship between doubt and humility? And then I thought, no, and or also really curiosity. And
100%.
realizing you can learn something from every single person. And that goes both up and down, up and up, down,
That's
and
exactly right.
behind and forward, right? I mean,
Right. We learn how not to be, right? As much as we learn how to be.
right, exactly. And not take anybody who comes to you for granted for what they can learn from you and what you can learn from them, usually more importantly, I find.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think it's very serendipitous that wherever you find yourself in life and the people that are put you in your path, they're put in your path for a reason. We
Yeah,
may not know what that reason is and we may not understand it, but they're there and they're there to teach us something. It might be
yeah,
something small. It might be something huge.
absolutely. Okay, in closing, my dear, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your younger self?
Continue to believe in yourself. Always know your worth. Remind yourself every day that you deserve to belong at the table, on the couch, in the kitchen, wherever you want to be. Yeah. And don't change. Don't change yourself at all, except for the better.
Yeah, I think at all ages, there's such a tendency, it's obvious, it's human, I call it pretzeling, where I
All right.
pretzel myself into the shape that fits the little, the role at hand is how I would probably pose it. And just getting comfortable and realizing, to your point, I don't need to change. It is who I am. And I'll get what I get out of this situation. And then I may find out, hey, guess what? I'm not your cup of tea. You're not my cup of tea. That's okay. That's great. Thank you. And thank God. So now we don't waste time and energy in places that are wrong paths for us at this moment.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And I think there's something very authentic about that too.
Mhm.
You don't have to keep pretending. I don't need everyone to like me. In fact, I don't. I say all the time, someone's like, oh my gosh, you need to meet so and so. And I'm like, I don't want any more friends. Not that I don't love them, but I am like this crazy loyal person who wants to be this great friend to the people I call my friends. I don't have time for the ones that really matter to me. I don't have
Right.
time, right?
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. And the truth is, as we're talking about this, I also recognize that frankly, through that's a form of like energy management. That's a form of self-care.
I guess you're right. It really is.
In a lot of ways, is it's not kind of cluttering and making, we all have the drawer in the kitchen.
Right. Oh my gosh, yes. Even after the hurricane, unpacking, I have the drawer in the kitchen.
I know it's like never going to happen. Exactly. So you don't want that drawer to become, your life of, in your drawer of friendships either. Oh
Right.
my
And
gosh.
to include you means something. So if you are considered a friend of mine, I'd like that to mean something to me and to you.
Yeah,
So, and it's not to say that I don't want other people as my friends. I just want to make sure that I'm taking care of the ones that I have.
exactly. Michelle, thank you so much. It's no small wonder why you have risen to all that you have and are continuing to. And it's just so wonderful. And your generosity and spirit in bringing others around you right along for the ride is fantastic. So thank you for all your pearls and all that you're doing.
Thank you so much for all you're doing and for having me. I so appreciate you and your time. Thanks
My
again.
pleasure. Till next time.
Till next time.
So, what'd you think? I don't know why, but I really wanted to. I've been thinking quite a bit about doubt and self doubt and its correlation with humility and curiosity. And I think because I'm seeing in these tumultuous times so many people debating about either are they doing the right thing? Are they in the right job? Are they believing the right things? And others casting down opinions about who they are and who they can and cannot be. And when I had the opportunity to speak with Michelle, I just thought, from someone who grew up in a very small town to living the life that she is now, and frankly, helping others who are falling in those same troughs of disbelief, I just thought was a really important point to bring up and to remind everybody. My KB takeaways for this is this whole notion, can you learn from doubt? And absolutely. I think what you learn is just how strong and resilient you are. So it does require a bit of patience and it does require effort. So both are very much worthwhile to be put into that situation. Keep being yourself versus changing and, as I call it, pretzeling so that you fit into what other people need you to be. This is something that will happen again and again and again, because as we evolve, which we all do, you're going to outgrow certain situations, certain friends, certain jobs. And it can be poignant, frankly. I think we probably all have had either friends or worlds that we just don't fit in anymore. And it's not a intentionally negative or hurtful thing. It's just in order for you to continue on and be all that you can be, and hence have the impact and influence around all the ecosystems that are in your future, you need to really embrace that and can carry on. I love the notion of not wanting a small table, because that means I'm small-minded. Every person who crosses your path is there for a reason. Yet another KB takeaway right there. To either teach, to demonstrate, to give you pause, to make sure, are you really sure about something, or are you thinking clearly about something? And finally, the thought and the reality of you deserve to belong. Frankly, really, everybody does, as long as they're coming from a place of an open heart and kindness, and they're not being bullies and awful to others. So with that, I wish you all a terrific week, and I look forward to the next conversation on Women Advancing.
Thanks for listening. May this episode inspire you to move forward. Be sure to go to iTunes, Spotify, katebyrne.co, that's KATEBYRNE.co, or wherever you listen to your podcasts, and listen to even more episodes. Here's to strong women. May we know them, may we be them, may we raise them. And be sure to meet them on the next Women Advancing. Ta till next time.